two panels to close off. Well, I say the day, I mean the track, obviously, of course. We've got two panels to close off mapping the metaverse. And the first of which is carrying on the theme of fashion. And we're going to be talking about fashion's place in the metaverse. And leading the panel, we've got Jade from our sponsors, Lockwood. You heard Oliver before, and now we've got Jade joining us. Hi, Jade.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Lovely to have you. Yeah, you too. And we've also got all of our panelists. Normally, I would do a little bit of an welcome and say hi, but I'm going to just say a general welcome to you all and leave that to Jade, because I think that's always best to leave that to the moderator of the panel. Before you start though, I want to just quickly remind everyone to throw in your questions into the Q&A like you did in the last fireside chat, and make use of the subtitles and closed captioning if they're useful to you. Other than that, I'm going to drift off into the background and let you carry on. But I wanted to say, don't worry that we're running a bit behind. Use the full time. You've got all the time. So yeah, over to you, Jade.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I'm going to start with an introduction myself and then pass it on to Eva and Evelyn. So yeah, hi, I'm Jade. I'm head of fashion for Avakin Life. My role here is to reflect the real world into the virtual Avakin landscape through creating digital content that resonates with our user base. So fashion within gaming offers that quick fix of immediate indulgence with an incredibly quick production turnaround from design creation to instant publish at the press of a button, with some blood, sweat and tears involved probably. Here at Avakin, we boast an impressive catalogue of 30,000 virtual items and sell about 2.8 million items every day. We publish around 200 new digital fashion items every month with two published days of content per week. We also support live ops with merchandising, our expansive catalogue through re-releasing, repurposing assets and strategically placing them within the environments and the events and marketing too. There's no mass production in this game as such. One asset is created from the fashion side with the possibility of multiple reiterations on textures at low cost to conception. So this is really like sustainable approach, especially for our ever mindful Gen Z consumers. We work alongside the themes within our digital world in Avakin Life, as well as offering like the real world fashion assets and trends to our users in game. So we keep on the pulse of the emerging trends that we see. However, we constantly are reflecting on our users through listening, researching and analysis. We start with initial research to concept, so like drafting up 2D actual like illustrations and then giving feedback, and then we follow that 3D progression as the assets go through the art teams and then discuss the changes, etc. Then they get passed on to our QA team and publishing team and make it into Avakin. We successfully hosted our own fashion altered space in September 2020, where we provided an experiential canyon space to 7 up and coming designers and brands. Our community engaged with each designer via streamed interviews, and we created a real buzz for the brand's drops in game. I approached Lili, one of our guest speakers today, to be part of Fashion Altered. Then myself and the artist got to work alongside, bringing her digital designs into Avakin world. There, our users were buzzing for her collection to drop, and it resonated like really well, both in terms of sales and UGC. We're looking to explore these ideas further with advancing technologies and approaches for the success of brands seeking a platform to launch their assets, from benefiting both platform and brand with new user acquisition and exciting content touchpoints. So the fashion team here at Avakin, at Lockwood, has evolved into a fast-paced environment of content creation where we understand and reflect on our users' behaviours. Sorry, really needed a drink. And desires. We have aspirational players who want to experiment and evolve, and we also have players who create self-identification to feel secure and recognisable within their second world. Ultimately, we must create diverse opportunities to inspire all our users and give them desirables and assets that they didn't even know they wanted. This offers them a wealth of content that reflects the real world and the hyper reality of our metaverse that offers unlimited ways to be you. So enough about me. I'm here to moderate this panel discussion, which I would like to note is a female-led one, which is fantastic to see in this industry. So it's great to be a part of. I'd like to pass on the intros to our guest speakers. So we've got Lili Bartha, digital designer, and Evelyn Mora from Digital Village. So Lili, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then Evelyn, you can follow.
Sure, thank you so much, Jade. It was a lovely introduction. And yeah, I did get in touch with Lockwood by providing my digital designs for this particular fashion month, and it was a really interesting experience. But just to start from the beginning, I'm a designer and researcher. I have a traditional fashion background and having worked quite a lot in physical fashion garment making. And I kind of got to a point in my professional development where I felt like this is not the way how I want to contribute to the system. And I feel like there are critical issues that can be addressed in different ways. And coming from my scientific background, I actually started exploring how the expansion of a fashion practice can work through digital tools, and really understanding what fashion becomes when you're involving more and more digital tools in your practice, and also, you know, how can you actually combine your creative vision and enable other people as well to do the same. I founded a digital innovation lab in 2020, and ever since with Digital Fashion Framework, we've been successfully working with fashion stakeholders, companies, retailers, individual designers, and academia to really look into how this kind of digital acceleration is going to implement itself into the system, and how can we make sure that all the adoption and the kind of developments will go into a positive kind of social and environmental change. I also lecture quite a lot, and I research in academia, and I find it really important to kind of keep up to date with the latest innovations from a research perspective, but then also apply them into the industry as soon as possible, because I believe that the system itself needs solutions today and also in the near future. And I'm really, really excited to talk today about the Metaverse. It's something that I cannot even have a discussion without mentioning, but I do think that it needs a lot of thorough investigation on what does this actually mean for fashion, and this very strong bond that kind of forming between fashion and games, and how can we make sure that everyone is benefiting from it in a very organic but also positive way. That's enough about me.
Brilliant, thanks, Lili. Evelyn?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I'm Evelyn Mora, founder of Digital Village. I'm based in Paris. I work as a strategist in fashion, in public sector, with governments, and I work and consult around sustainable development. And we are building Digital Village Metaverse right now on Unreal Engine, and our own marketplace with our social blockchain technology, which we're about to launch soon. So yeah, great to be here and discuss important topics with you ladies.
Brilliant, it's great to have you both on board. So we'll start with our questions. We've got a list of questions, and then we'll go on to the Q&As as well. So our first question, which I wanted to direct to you, Evelyn, first, but I'm going to get you both to kind of dive into each of these. What do gamers want from fashion partnerships?
All right, so first of all, disclaimer, these are deep questions and we can talk about each question for weeks. So trying to bring the most relevant parts up. So I think that there is no such a thing as Metaverse, you know, in the end of the day. It's a new form that social media, e-commerce, and gaming is shaping into. So to me, we have to look into the big picture and definitely be aware of physicality of things. So I don't like the idea of separating the digital space from our physical lives, especially from sustainability perspective. These are very interconnected, and in my work specifically and with our team, our approach is very interdisciplinary. So yeah, understanding how, you know, the entire lifestyles of these gamers, you know, I feel like everyone will be a gamer in the future. Aren't we all already gamers? You know, how we interact with our phones every day. And so I feel like we have to just look at the big picture and sort of, zoom back and understand how these gamers right now interact with the clothing and how that reflects back to their physical lifestyles as it's connected to how they live their lives, express themselves there. So to me, it's not a siloed situation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Lili, what's your thoughts on this?
Yes, just like Evelyn mentioned, sorry, my English sometimes doesn't work on Mondays. Just like Evelyn mentioned, I feel like the metaverse is really obviously just a very buzz term, but what is behind it, the kind of social trends and how, you know, communication is evolving and our presence is kind of just like blurring, because even now we are looking at each other through a screen. So, you know, what gamers want from fashion, I think is more just like what people want, you know, in this cross-realm existence. What do we do on a physical daily basis and what do we do on a digital daily basis? And I put on clothes all day. I choose what kind of coffee I drink, and that's exactly the same kind of self-expression I would want to do in any digital platform, because it is how we define our identity. It is how we choose how to be represented and be part of a society that takes place on, you know, any kind of platform that can be physical or digital. So I think that's actually what just literally happening. Fashion is a form of self-expression. It's one of the most obvious ways of doing it. I think it's a beautiful way of doing it. So, you know, giving these options to the people and the users who are in the digital realms right now is just a natural way. Also, we are a consumptive society, right? So it's like a natural behavior that we are just used to do. So doing the same in games and game platforms of today, I think is something that people just like, you know, eager to do. On the other hand, I think this is a two-way relationship, just like Evelyn mentioned. So actually, all the assets that somebody buys in games and all the skins and all, you know, anything that they create there or the feeling they have there, bringing that into physical lives of today is really important. So actually, I think this is where technology is key, how it's going to evolve and how it's going to make everything more accessible. Because I think that bringing things out of games is also really interesting. And this is where really this kind of blur happens in terms of how our identity not just expands into the digital, but the digital identity kind of overlays on top of us. And then how does that kind of create a cross-realm profile? I call it immersive profile that really just describes us as consumers, as users of this metaverse. So I think it's a really important thing to understand. It's a two-way relationship, and it is very much tied to technological advancements, but I think the social kind of movements behind this whole kind of interaction between the players of this is really exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely see that with resonate with like creating your own avatar in game and whether that's going to be a personal reflection of you or not, which is exciting. So the second question, so how can fashion brands realize their digital potential? Lili.
Sure. So this is something really exciting for me. Everything is, but especially this because, you know, I have this kind of very close relationships with a couple of brands, retailers, designers, and just understanding that I can deliver digital content to them was amazing. But then I also kind of had to I guess comprehend with the fact that creating content and giving it to them is one thing, but, you know, enabling them to create it for themselves is even better, I think. So I think, you know, maximizing the potential as a business in fashion is really about spotting where the digital tools and the digital content will enhance your current business model and kind of spot where in your value chain it can first fit in. Because I think there has been already a discussion about this. It can be many different things. It can be in the supply chain, enabling, you know, rapid prototyping, reduced sampling, just battling physical logistics, but it could be also in promotion or creating new consumer experiences and narrating your brand in a new way, really having that two-way connection with your customers. It can be also new product ranges where you literally just create, you know, new types of products that you had never had the chance to do before. And I think the most important is as a brand or a retailer is to realize what is where you can start and then how to execute it. I think today is very much a B2B2C business landscape where, you know, companies don't necessarily have the time, energy, or investment to create an in-house digital team. I think it's becoming more and more common, but there is still a steep learning curve. So therefore, they kind of outsource the content creation. And I think that this will be something really interesting to observe how, you know, technology will enable everyone to kind of have a more democratic approach to the use of tools and adopting digital technologies. And therefore, how this B2B2C model will move into a more B2C and even a C2C model. So I think the first advice is, you know, kind of understand where you need this, you know, help and how can you actually benefit from it to make sure that you're really communicating the essence of your brand in a true way that kind of, you know, reflects back on your vision and your mission and your brand profile.
Brilliant. Evelyn.
Lili didn't leave me anything to say, but I will. You covered beautifully a lot of things. I would say that brands do understand their potential, the potential of yeah, their digital potential. But I think that what we need to understand is that digital is not one size fits all kind of a situation. So just everything Lili just listed, it's, you know, different for each brand, how to capture that brand identity and how to, you know, optimize using these tools. To me, essentially, tech tools are another tool to, you know, help us to become more sustainable, reach our sustainability goals, and just, you know, for R&D purposes and business development purposes. But the question is, I mean, brands are doing it. A lot of brands are testing different ways of, you know, existing in the digital space. And Balenciaga's game, you know, I mean, a lot of things are happening in the fashion industry, but then what is the long-term strategy for these brands? That's exciting. But then how can these brands, you know, establish that strategy? Where can they test it? And I mean, we need to, again, look at the bigger picture and long-term strategy rather than, you know, dropping something quickly or approaching these tools as tools of making our supply chains and lives faster, because it's fast enough. So we have to slow down and we have to optimize. And I feel that by strategizing correctly the use of these tech tools, brands can really benefit from the metaverse and from the digital space.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's touching upon our last question, but we're not going to get to that first. We've got the third question. How do you see digital worlds helping the fashion industry to be more inclusive? Lili.
I think inclusivity is a really interesting thing because it kind of has two perspectives in my eyes. One of them is that it goes hand in hand with diversity, because enabling, you know, the stakeholders and anyone, a consumer in the fashion industry, to really feel truly be included in the industry also means that, you know, the affordances of the industry and what the tools and what the platforms enable the users to kind of experience has to also offer the right, or actually the maximum amount of diversity. So that's definitely one thing where I'm really interested in. Can we actually, you know, customize ourselves or express ourselves to the level we want it to be? And that is really about investigating the actual tools that are given to us, and are they actually capable of doing that? And then really investigating, especially I would like to think about games and how, you know, diversity and gender representations are in games. That's one part of the inclusivity and diversity discussion. But the other one is really about, I'm a fashion designer, so sometimes I really feel like I'm in an ivory tower on top of the world, looking down on, you know, the users and the customers who will consume the items that I create. And I think this needs to be disrupted, and the industry needs to be radically democratized and really think about how we can give the power of creation to everyone. I think Morgan earlier was talking about creation as entertainment, and I think that's a beautiful way of phrasing it, because my studio is actually developing some tools that will enable wider audiences to create fashion, digital assets, and any kind of self-expression, hopefully in a very intuitive, very immersive way. And I was always thinking about, what is the role of creation in that? Is that actually freedom? But actually nothing comes from feeling bad using it. So actually it is about joy, it is about play, and it is about entertainment. So I think inclusivity is definitely kind of goes also hand in hand with providing freedom through play and enjoyment to the stakeholders and the participants of this whole metaverse.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's we're not there yet with the UGC within fashion Avakin, but for them to like create with the content that we give them and see what they do with that, it's to express themselves is really important and powerful too. So Evelyn, could you give more insight into that question as well?
Yeah, I think it's all about curation in the end, what kind of experiences you create in the digital space. And what we are doing right now, it's all about involving the community in creating that metaverse and how it's, you know, functioning, how we define the life cycle of a digital asset or a value of a digital asset, and how do we collaborate and move these assets from, an environment to another, collaborate with other metaverses. I feel that even from like a campaign perspective, if you look at fashion industry campaigning about and focusing to different topics momentarily for a specific campaign, I feel like these could be long-term existing, ongoing, realities that people, in this case users, can curate, the perfect balance and environment for themselves. And yeah, I'm excited about how, social blockchain technology and other tech tools can enable real inclusivity and yeah, building the structures between this new space, because essentially, again, we're not somewhere unfamiliar. We have to understand that our online time is very much connected with our offline time. It's one life essentially, and yet we still differentiate these two spaces. And I feel like in the digital space, whether it's about design or sound or experience or sustainability, there is a lot to moderate, if you will, and why not let that user take control of what's best for them.
It's really interesting. So coming into like our final question, how do we ensure a sustainable relationship? Because this kind of was brought up in the previous question. How do we ensure a sustainable relationship exists way into the future and it isn't just a marketing, like a forgotten marketing stunt? Evelyn.
Well, I think what we've done successfully in Digital Village is to really shape these tools to fit our goals and purpose of what we are doing. So blockchain is not just as it is. You can really push boundaries, reshape it for the purpose of your platform, and combine and curate these tools in a way that it actually creates impact, sustainable impact in the real world. And again, there is no such a thing as digital space and physical space. It's all interconnected. And when it comes to supply chain, digital tools touch every step of the supply chain. They touch every step of our experiences. So, it's one thing. It's one round.
Lili, what are your thoughts on that? I have a couple of points on this from different perspectives, because one is that there is a wonderful term by Tony Fry, my favorite design theorist, called sustainment. And actually the kind of notion of sustainment is not really what we see as sustainability today. It is much more about a state of existence for the whole society that can actually just sustain itself and make sure that we kind of positively approach our future. And I think that anything that happens in any kind of industry has to be in light of that. That's just like a very theoretical thing, but I do like to mention it because often people look at sustainability from more like a environmental perspective, which is great, but we have to understand it is everywhere, and it should be everywhere, and it should be in all our thoughts and in our actions, in any capability we can influence it. The other thing is that I feel like the new narrative channels that immersive technologies, for example, create, or even this notion of metaverse and really interoperability and interconnectivity will enable to have these discussions even more, I think. And it's really important to push about, what does a critical issue in, for example, the fashion industry mean, and why does it need to be really, really addressed today, and how not just the stakeholders, business stakeholders, but also the individuals and the customers and the users have to be aware of this and make sure that they contribute to some level. And then the other thing is that I heard sometimes people talking about the digital tools as the solution, and moving forward, they are just part of the solution in some way, but we cannot forget that they also have their own, implication in terms of socio-environmental footprint. So I think as this is going to kind of merge more and more with our everyday life, we just need to make sure we have the right tools to measure how that impact is actually, kind of happening through the use of increased digital tools, and how is that comparing it to the physical actual, for example, product consumption. And lastly, I think it's really important to encourage people to start thinking about at some point, why would they consume digital products instead of physical products? Because I think that is also part of the future. We will have much more digital product consumption than physical one, but then we need to enable this, and that again where technology comes in. The more accessible the tools are, the more accessible the platforms are, the more interoperable the platforms are, that will really encourage the users and the customers to engage with more digital products. And I think that is also a way of kind of like, taking away the focus from the physical production, because there is a lot of overproduction and overconsumption. So it's just a lot of things to unpack in sustainability. Like Evelyn mentioned, we could talk about this for weeks, but I do think this is one of the most important kind of topics in general. It's not just about how our lives are evolving into this kind of merged universe, but it is also about sustainment for everyone in their everyday life, really thinking about every decision they make, how can that benefit everyone else.
Can I just add something here? What's really something that I've paid attention to is mental health, and how these digital spaces have been for years already affecting our self-image, self-esteem, our lifestyles, and how algorithms have been designed on different platforms, data aspects of things. I think that from sustainability perspective, curation and art direction, visual quality and narratives are key to also really optimize these sustainable experiences and spaces, safe spaces for the users that actually help them rather than use them. So essentially we have a lot of work to do, but I'm excited for the future.
Universe. Well, we've got a few more minutes before we go to Q&As. Have you guys got anything further that you'd want to discuss? Or because I know you said you could go on about this for days. But...
yeah, I mean, I'm just like sort of waking up to a conversation, but something that I want to also say is that there is, everybody likes, every second person wakes up and creates a digital marketplace. Everyone is creating a metaverse. There is so much noise and saturation and claims and hype right now that we just have to seriously take a moment to understand that how this is going to impact our lifestyles and our humanity in the near future. So this is a responsibility. I think that metaverse digital space is such an amazing opportunity, but it's also a massive responsibility. And I feel like those who really focus on the details and the long-term thinking will win in the end, because users will experience eventually these spaces and they will choose those that actually provide them and bring something good into their lives.
It's a really bold, true statement to end on.
Definitely. If I may add, though, I think equally to the different platforms and places, it's really important to look at the actual tools the affordances, the potential possibilities that platforms will enable their users to do. We also have to really investigate what those will make everyone capable of doing within these platforms. And I specifically mean tools of customization and asset creation, and just like trading and having their own little ecosystem and kind of market within these places. Because again, as I mentioned, I think the C2C kind of business model is the future, really. So it is about democratizing everything basically as much as it's possible. So I think criticality is really important towards the platforms, but also towards the actual tools that will enable people to create value.
Yeah, so accessibility and diversity is super important, definitely. So as we finish our panel discussion and come to the Q&As, I think we've got Sophia who's going to follow up with some Q&As for us. She's there. Thank you.
Yeah, I can do for sure. Yeah, sometimes the moderator does it, sometimes I do it, whichever suits best.
I'm happy to do it. I don't mind it.
Whichever you prefer. But yeah, we've got about 1, 2, 3. We've got about 5 questions in here. But I know we ran over, but we've got more than enough time. But or maybe if I ask them, and then if you've got any input, Jade, as well, you can throw in as well.
Happy to. Okay.
So if we start with the first one, it says, what is the best way to sell virtual fashion? Should it be within specific games, or should it use something like NFT, blockchain technology? Does anyone on the panel have any thoughts about, the best way of selling virtual fashion?
I'll start with some. I think I instantly would think that that's a mixed bag, that it could be within the games and NFTs as well, and they can kind of coexist like that. I don't know, that's just my first initial thought from that question. Don't know, Lili, if you had.
Yeah, I was just thinking that anywhere where you have an avatar that you want to customize, we can be blows. I actually really want to have, I love VR chat when you can be an eyeball or a toast. That's amazing. But what if you want to dress your eyeball or your toast? Point is, digital skins and avatars are everywhere. Digital self-expression is everywhere. So again, going back to what is fashion, it is self-expression. So the answer is, I think everywhere should be kind of sold. But again, that kind of goes into, is it actually accessible? And then an interesting conversation I had, I don't remember when, about what is actually the agenda of these fashion companies giving, fashion labeled branded items in games, and how will that work with like fast fashion, for example. So when the question had this word fashion in it, I would rather say, outfits and self-expression. And then the other discussion about the actual brand profiles. What does it mean that, League of Legends or Fortnite has fashion in it, and what is the agenda of those brands really there, and what will the actual users benefit from it? I think that's a very different topic, but I think every platform should just have an option, if it's possible, to enable freedom of self-expression.
Sure. Evelyn, anything that you would want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I can't reveal the things that we are about to launch, but you get to experience it soon. But I just want to say that there is no rules on how you can sell. So this is the beauty of the metaverse, beauty of digital spaces, that it can be completely redefined. I think that there shouldn't be one way to do things anyway. So, and I have sort of a very social aspect to this, and I approach it in the same way as how would you sell a product in the real world. The secondhand marketplaces for digital fashion, I'm super excited about those aspects. Recycling digital assets, sharing and ownership on an asset. There are so many wonderful ways to collaborate and co-own and co-create in the metaverse that super excited to test those to see how it functions.
Fantastic. Next question I've got is from Chris from Still Media, who says, fashion by its nature seems ideally suited to a persistent metaverse. Just as we have our own unique style in the clothes we choose in real life, so too it would make sense to have our own persistent style in the metaverse. Is this a realistic vision? Anyone want to throw in here?
I have to say that absolutely. It's such an amazing question. And I'm just super excited about how we will be able to recreate ourselves, our styles, and aesthetics in the digital space, and how essentially or eventually it will create trends and influence the physical world because of its success and its atmosphere that it actually achieves in the digital space. So I would say, yes, very realistic, coming soon.
Watch the space.
Yeah, just to add to that, that's exactly what I am looking at on a daily basis, is how to create tools, which I mentioned earlier, that you have to be really critical about, to actually enable people to manage to create this virtual identity, whatever that is, and how reflecting the physical nature they want it to be. So the creation of intuitive design tools, I think, are really important. At the moment, it's a really exclusive kind of sector. Like creating digital assets is really hard, I think, even for fashion designers, even with the softwares that are designed for fashion designers. So thinking about how we could bring that to a really comprehensible level is really important in order to have the ability to do what the question asked.
Fantastic. And next question I've got is from Dale. Dale asks, do you see games fashion designers as a growing field in the gaming industry? And do you think this would be quite a popular route for fashion students?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, it's happening, it's emerging. Fashion students are learning more about all of this technology now. So it'll be really interesting to watch that growth, especially up and coming designers coming out of university, especially with like COVID, on their computers, learning all these amazing new skills and working out if arms in T-pose work and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, Evelyn, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was
It's okay.
I did
it. I did it earlier. It's so easy to do it.
Yeah. Now oh no, I remember the question. Great. So I would say that it's up to us to define how much this new sort of profession is respected as the traditional fashion designers, because instead of advertising and hyping around digital that it's faster, rapid production, no waste, that's not absolutely true. We need to be mindful in terms of sustainable creation in the digital space. But also what's really one thing that I've learned is that, for example, if you see this garment behind my back, these are, patches that a traditional designer designed, 3D designer collaborated, put them all together. So, it took hours of work and design to create. So this is definitely, I think that, we have to keep in mind that these are people creating these assets. So, and it's not easy. It's really about pushing boundaries and creating those beautiful digital assets in digital space. Is not copy paste and just the automized situation. It takes time and effort. It takes patterns, understanding of textures, silhouettes. So I would say that definitely there is a lot of different schools. There is a digital fashion group that has been initiated by 3 major fashion school deans, like ex-Parsons Dean Burak Çakmak and Leslie Holden, a school just for digital fashion designers, and a lot of different universities like Royal College in London are going very rapidly to this direction, and a lot of students are amazingly talented. They are already there, so I wouldn't be surprised, to see the careers of the already game designers sort of take off.
I think it's really important as well that you communicate that, because it's easy for people to see something on a screen and their understanding is just like, oh, it's magic. But that communication is something that really needs to be thought out, and so the value of those amazing assets. I know.
Yeah.
And just to make sure that we don't replicate how physical fashion works in the sense of exploitation, and really just making sure that any kind of work being done is appreciated and, just like Jade mentioned, well communicated. I think Gary was talking about, I think it skipped my mind, but he said something beautiful about this. All the knowledge is available online. So really kind of understanding how to design digitally is out there, but that also is a really hard learning curve. So it requires a lot of patience and respect. And I think that's a beautiful craft that is hidden in these digital assets.
Yeah. Okay, great. And another question we've got, because we've still got about 5 minutes or so, is do you think the mainstream fashion industry is excited about the possibilities of the game space, or do you think they see it more as just a revenue stream? Does anyone have any insights into this?
I have insights I can't share because of NDA, but I will tell my own opinion that absolutely they're so excited. They see so much potential in these spaces. But again, the question is to really form a long-term strategy and understand how these spaces fit with specific brand, specific physical businesses, business model, and how they can, exist long-term in these spaces. And they're doing lots of tests. There is a lot of R&D going on behind the scenes, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of amazing things soon. I, for example, just Coperni did an amazing extended reality campaign on Unreal. It was super classy, very well done. So, fashion industry has its own energy, aesthetics, culture, and, different brands and companies just need to find how sort of balance between these digital spaces and the physical fashion industry, and how those can coexist. I think we have a lot of work to do, a lot of testing to do, but this is something that is definitely happening.
Yeah, fantastic. Right, let's move on to the next question, which is, Do you feel there's any danger that designers and other creatives will ultimately be creating with each other more? For example, as much as fashion designers may want to make games, will game designers feel that they can create fashions? It might not be a problem, the person says, but is it potentially a problem?
I think it's very much about the ego, isn't it? Anyone who's designing something has its own ego or their own ego. So it is about just letting it go. But then also the term, what is fashion and what is games? And can you actually design fashion, or is it a way of your own interpretation of some kind of creative form and expression? I think that's important to distinguish, because fashion can be often this exclusive ivory tower I talked about. But I think that's not really relevant anymore in this century. So I think people just need to let go of their ego and just like make sure that everyone has the freedom and space to really explore what their creativity would, result in.
Yeah.
Often we talk a lot about, we name drop collaboration all the time, sustainability and all these words, but do we actually practice them? So I think that we can curate tools for these creators to collaborate, environments and spaces for them to actually be able to benefit from this collaboration and create win-win situations. So I definitely think it's possible. And I think democratization is shaping, but we haven't created yet right tools for that to actually happen and create impact. So I'm excited to see, there is a lot of different spaces now coming and emerging. So I'm happy to see how they will actually create impact and, shape this field.
Fantastic. And I'm going to squeeze in one last question, which rather than forward thinking, I think looks a little bit back and to see the history in this field. So the question is, when did you first encounter the idea of personalizing avatars with cosmetic items within game worlds? For example, did you see premium brand DLC in The Sims or in the cosmetics within the now, it's not available PlayStation Home? I mean, where would you say that the origins of this exist, and how long has this been something that's been gestating and evolving?
Personally, mine was the expansion pack of The Sims with H&M. Yeah. And that's where I kind of started seeing that. And then when I was playing those games, The Sims, and then kind of went into fashion and trend forecasting, and then kind of started seeing these bits pulling together. And then here I am at Lockwood and kind of seeing this explosion of two industries colliding. It's really exciting. So yeah, that's kind of my memory of that.
Yeah.
I would say that mine was I guess in fashion or in cyberspace or metaverse specifically, was in 2019. I wrote an article for Forbes China about using digital tools in the design process and how that can basically optimize the supply chain, or that specific supply chain step of the supply chain. And another aspect that I really sort of started looking into this was, I was grocery shopping online, and it was just such a boring 2D experience. And I was just tired of Facebook. I'm tired of Gmail. I want to, answer emails, socialize and experience, get the benefits what these platforms offer without having to be exploited, without having to, be bored. So I was thinking that how can we redesign these environments, and how can we redesign the way we interact with technology by still having, our groceries delivered, having the same result with a different experience. And that's when we started looking at frequencies and colors and duration aspects and, quality of visuals and all these elements. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Lili?
I was just thinking about fiction, because my brother made me play World of Warcraft when I was, 10, and I got really scared. But I also really like this whole idea of, you know, how back then I think it was a bit more segregated, what is a physical kind of presence and digital, with that kind of fictional space and the fictional outfits, and just the notion of really expanding our reality was really capturing for me. And I think that's the beauty that really kind of like pulls people to the dark side, in a sense that there are no limitations anymore, and anything can be an experience. Even the choice of doing something or yeah, just clicking on something can be an experience, just like Evelyn said. So I very much think of even the upcoming fashion designers or any game developer as an experience designer instead. And I think we're all kind of consumers of experiences. So I think it's just been always around, but I think today we just have more accessibility to integrate it in our everyday lives a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, well, fantastic. Thank you so much to all of you. Yeah, unfortunately, we've now run out of time, but we got through nearly all of the questions. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Jade, not only for hosting the panel, but for being a part of the Q&A as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
ladies.
Thank you.